Good afternoon, everybody. As usual, Tuesdays, our Zoom the World series we do with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Poland. Welcome. Today we want to discuss Germany. Germany is the neighbor of Poland, and of course, it's a very important country for Europe. And in Germany now, everybody focuses on a new perspective because Angela Merkel announced that she wants to quit very soon the politics. So the political scene in Germany and how the Germans look at the European Union and the world, that will be the topic of our discussion. Let me welcome our guest, is Mr. David Gregos. David, hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon to the audience.
Yes, it's head of Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Poland. Of course, he's German. He's also a member of the CDU party, so that helps us to understand what are the development in the party. So thanks, David, that you agreed to join this discussion. And Janusz Reiter. Janusz, dzień dobry. Janusz is our founder, actually very well known to the Polish public, and our president of the board of Center for International Relations. So thanks a lot for being with us. And for this talk, it's important to mention that Janusz was our ambassador to Germany and still has excellent understanding and context in this country. And together with me is my colleague from the Center for International Relations, Agnieszka Ostrowska, the program director of our center. Hi, Agnieszka.
Hello, nice to be here.
Okay, David, so let me immediately go to you with the first question. We all know that we followed the changes in your party, in CDU, and you have a new leader, Armin Laschet. If you can tell us, for you, for the party, what is this change like? What are these two personalities, Mr. Laschet and Mrs. Merkel? And what do you expect with this change?
Yeah, many thanks, Małgorzata, for the question and for the invitation in general. It's good to be part of the round, and best regards to the audience. I think the change on in the leadership of CDU is quite important. It's significant because with the step down of Angela Merkel, an era will end. I think 16 years of the chancellorship of Angela Merkel really transformed not only the party CDU, modernized the CDU in a way, but also transformed Germany in a way. And maybe we can focus on some policy fields later on, but it was really a transformation in many regards on certain policy areas. And of course, after 16 years, it's quite difficult to convince the electorate, the voters, once again for the CDU. The CDU really struggled in the last 2 years to find a new leader. Angela Merkel stepped down in October 2018 after a loss, an more or less expected loss in a federal election. She stepped down from the leadership of the party, and she reached more or less that her favorite candidate, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, took the office as the new party leader. But the 2 years of Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer weren't that successful, and therefore the CDU had the necessity to find a new party leader. And there was a heavy competition between 3 people, Friedrich Merz, Norbert Röttgen, and Armin Laschet. More or less 1 year, the parties struggled internally. Some were in strong favor for Friedrich Merz, others were in strong favor for Armin Laschet. And then due to Corona, we had an online convention of the party where the delegates elected Armin Laschet as the new party leader in January. And this was an important decision because Armin Laschet promises a certain continuity with a view to Angela Merkel's legacy. He's a progressive conservative and has liberal attitudes. So I think so far he has not developed a pronounced foreign and economic policy profile, but he considers certain principles of Christian democratic politics to be important. This includes a market-oriented economic policies that workers do not forget. And he's a practicing Catholic, and he was defending every time Angela Merkel's refugee policy, and emphasizes the role of integration policy. Of course, Armin Laschet has a long-standing experiences in the parliamentary field. He was member of the European Parliament. He was in the German Bundestag, so he really knows what is politics. He is a prime minister of a very important region in Germany, and therefore this election really marks something new. Now he has the task to really lead the party into the election together with Paul Ziemiak, the general secretary, and we will see the preparation of the election campaign beginning in May or June. Then we will have a summer break, and in late August, September, we will really see a heavy election campaign.
So before we come back to the election, I just want to, ask Janusz, because Janusz, personally Mr. Laschet. I just want to hear from you what you expect from this kind of a leader.
Well, Armin Laschet is a very experienced politician. His style is not very spectacular, but it is quite effective, efficient. So sometimes people say that he's one of those politicians who are underestimated, and some of them at least, or many of them, turn out to be very successful. I would like just to remind you that one of those who spoke about himself that he was the most underestimated leader was Helmut Kohl. And actually, he was underestimated for a long time. This changed, of course, with the German unification and with this great political achievement. But for a long time, Helmut Kohl was actually underestimated. The same happened to Armin Laschet. He should not be underestimated. He is a very experienced man with, I think, a good feel for the mood and with a very clear set of, I would say, coordinates in his political thinking. Armin Laschet is a man of the center. So someone may ask, what does it mean to be a man of the center? This means a lot, because it means, well, the commitment to some core value of the CDU, but at the same time, it does not limit the room for maneuver very much, because everybody in this position can, has the freedom, so to speak, to redefine the center. And this is also what Armin Laschet will have to do. So he was elected as a man of the center, but the question, what will be the content of the center or of the center position, this question is open. And the answer to this question will depend on a lot of factors, domestic and international factors. I would just add finally that even if Armin Laschet looks rather slow and very tempered, he will, if he gets elected chancellor, and this is very likely to happen, and he will take over a country that is facing a lot of heavy challenges, domestic and international. So there will be no business as usual, even though Armin Laschet is committed to the legacy of Angela Merkel. There will be no business as usual. There will be changes. It is too early now, I think, even maybe for Armin Laschet to say what exactly these changes will be. He will have to navigate through a very turbulent time, both domestically and internationally.
I want to ask you, David, about this turbulent time and about these expectations, because there are huge expectations towards the new leader, especially vis-a-vis Angela Merkel, who is so well perceived as a leader of Europe also, not only leader of Germany. So what would be the key priorities, in your opinion, of the new chancellor and new government?
I think we should focus on three issues. First and foremost, the economic situation will be crucial. I think after the election, more crucial than ever, because Corona hit the German economy as well very hard, especially some branches. Corona raised the debt levels. Therefore, we will see a debate about taxes. Do they have to rise? Shall we set new incentives? Should we raise taxes? We will debate about this. And Corona, of course, showed a lot of weaknesses regarding the German economy, especially the state of digitization is weak, and the dependency on global value chains is very high, and therefore we should also keep an eye on this. So economic policy, the entire board of economic issues will play a crucial role. Of course, as Janusz Reiter already mentioned, foreign policy will play a crucial role, because Germany has to redefine its role regarding China. We have a huge exposure towards China, and this is also a problem for us because China is not playing very fair on the global markets, and the continuous theft of intellectual property rights, the problems with the entry, with the market barriers, and all this will keep us up. And Germany, of course, has to set up an agenda together with its partners to revitalize the European Union. I mean, when you look at Italy, when you look at the problems in France, Le Pen is still on there. This is really a challenge. The populism, especially in France, is on the rise at the moment. We have to find, maybe also with the Conference of Europe, which is planned now for the coming months, we really have to revitalize the European spirit, and this is a second important thing. The third one is to find a new relationship with the new administration in Washington. We have to come closer together. We have to find common positions on many issues, and I hope Armin Laschet will send out, together with European partners, positive signals towards Washington in that regard. And the last pillar is, from my point of view, the ecological issue. I think one of the great challenges of our time is the reconciliation of the economy and of ecological issues. We have to reduce the CO2 emissions. We have to transform our energy intensify industries and branches. And of course, the sources of our energy supply are important. And all these issues will play a crucial role after the election.
I would like to ask you a question about China, because you are saying that Germany has to redefine its position towards this country. And the recent Germany's drive for EU-China's deal has drawn some criticism on the side of other European countries, including Poland, who kind of didn't like the way the investment agreement was pushed through in the last days of German presidency. So I'd like to ask you, how would you comment on that? And how will do you think position of Germany towards China look under the new leadership?
I mean, we all know that this agreement has to be ratified by the European Parliament. So it's just an in-between phase in a way. Of course, they agreed on the level of the presidents, but it's in ratification. But after 7 years of negotiating and talking, I think it was a good moment to at least use the opportunity that the Chinese offered a lot of things to the European side. The Chinese really felt the pressure from the American government. The Chinese felt that they have to move in a way regarding WTO, regarding their trade barriers, regarding intellectual property rights, and they moved, as at least on the paper. And the presidency of Germany, the European presidency, they just wanted to use this time window of opportunity to get something on the paper with the Chinese. Although, and I have to admit that this was a problem in a way. Although we should had it would have been good to wait it until the new Biden administration was in office. I mean, this was really a problem because at the 20th of January, Joe Biden was elected, and we should have consulted our American friends before agreeing on the treaty. This is true.
So, but maybe if I may ask Janusz now, because Janusz, you were not only the ambassador to Germany, but also you were ambassador to USA of Poland. So would you share this view that German presidency should wait for Biden to take over? And then if it happened, what could be the answer of Biden's administration towards this decision?
Well, I would first say that Germany is facing a huge transformation of what I could call its business model, its economic and political business model. Economically, because the country is has just begun the green transformation, and because the country is, of course, exposed to an extremely heavy competitive pressure from other regions, in particular from China, but also, of course, in the US. Germany's share in the global economy and also in the global trade is slowly shrinking. It is still an extremely powerful country, but its share is shrinking. But even more importantly, the country has to address two problems. It has to preserve its industrial core, including the old industries that still are relevant, like steel or like chemical industry. These industries are now under enormous pressure from the climate agenda. So the question is how to make them survive in a Europe that is going through the green transformation. This is doable, but it takes an enormous effort. And the second part of this economic challenge is the new industries. And here, Germany really lags behind. And this is also reflected in the, I would say, disappointing performance of Germany now during the COVID crisis. A year ago, the Germans were proud of themselves because their performance was extremely good. And I remember friends of mine in Germany saying, and these are people who really do not think in any, do have any nationalistic temptations. They said, well, it's good to live in Germany in these times. Well, now in 2021, the situation looks a little bit different. Why? Because as a former German politician rightly said, but the country is, of course, it is exaggerated, but it is, I think, rightly exaggerated. The country is fighting a challenge of 21st century with the instruments of the 19th century. And that's exactly the digital the technologies. And this is where Germany has to bridge the gap between itself and China and the US. Germany is also extremely dependent on the globalization, on open markets. this is not the golden age of open trade. So here again is an enormous pressure on Germany. Plus, politically, Germany has relied for a long time, until now actually, on the US security guarantees. Um, well, but there is now uh, a growing skepticism in Germany about the US commitment. There is the problem is that well, the German public and also a large part of the establishment no longer accepts the kind of deal security for economic solidarity. The US is also the US under Biden is expecting from Germany and from other European countries a certain amount of economic solidarity in the conflict or dispute with China. Germany hesitates to offer the support to the US because Germany is afraid of getting involved in this conflict, and Germany is dependent on, as I said, on global trade, but more and more on trade with China. This leads to tensions between Germany and the US. If you look at the recent opinion polls, they say very clearly that the majority of the German public wants to stay neutral, wants Germany to stay neutral in the conflict between the US and China. The German business elite, business community also wants to rather to stay neutral than to be involved in this conflict. Well, at the same time, well, people hope very much for what they sometimes call European sovereignty or European autonomy. But as much sympathy I have with the overall goal, well, this is very vague, especially in military terms. Who would rely today on European defense guarantees? Poland will not, certainly, and Germany also will not. So the question is how to reconcile the legitimate European ambitions of the Europeans, especially of the Germans, but also of the French, with the realities of the world and with the necessity of the transatlantic community. This is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy also for the new German leadership, because the German public is very critical and against the US, and there will be a gap between what the elite considers necessary and reasonable and what the public is willing to accept.
David, do you share the same views as Janusz described?
I'm really thankful that Ambassador Reiter touched upon so many important issues. I just want to add one thing. we talked a lot about the challenges, and the exciting development from a political point of view is that we have now the situation where the Conservative Party and the Greens are in favor of the voters, and both parties have to find solutions for this very complex situation. And especially for the Green Party, this will be challenging, very, very challenging, because of course we have to maintain, totally true, we have to maintain our industrial core, but we all know that we have to find a solution for the climate issues, and therefore the Greens have to develop their party. They have to be more pragmatic regarding policy measures. It's very easy to be in the opposition and to propose things which are very ambitious, but to be in the government and to be responsible for the voters is another issue. And in the same way, the CDU has to transform itself. and has to find new positions on many issues. Therefore, the constellation, which is quite likely after the September election, is so exciting, not only from a German point of view, but maybe also from a European point of view, because I think in a way this tendency towards ecological issues, towards new issues is a trend which will come up in a lot of European countries too.
Well, let's comment on a little bit on the elections results expected now in February. The opinion polls tell us that CSU can get 35% around. Then the Greens will be the second. It's around 19-20%. And SPD, Socialists, will be the third, around 16%. And then AfD, which is also an interesting player, it's around 10%. And FPD, it's 8%. And the Linke, it's 7%. These are the opinion polls for now. A lot of things can change. Janusz, maybe to you again, what these percentages would tell you what can happen and what kind of government Germany can have?
Well, yes, the CDU-CSU and Green Party coalition is the most likely outcome of the next elections. Even though things are changing in Germany, not dramatically, but there are some, I would say, constant factors. Well, the weakness of the SPD belongs to the constant factors, and it is not very likely to change for a lot of reasons, but that's not our topic now. The Green Party has a stable position after, well, last year was clearly the year of the executive branch. So the Greens and the opposition did not have much to say, but they have recovered from this period, and they came up with a new energy, and this party certainly has a great potential. CDU-CSU has a pretty stable position, even though the crisis management still can have some influence on the CDU-CSU election performance, and we will have the first test of the popularity of the parties next year in state elections in 2 German states. A party that somehow cannot get the momentum is the Liberal Party FDP. FDP, well, actually, this could be the momentum for the FDP, because this is the party of the economic expertise, and economic expertise is in demand today. But for whatever reasons, this party cannot go beyond 7-8%. Maybe this will change in the next months, but it is not likely to change as much as it could to change the total constellation and to make possible a coalition between CDU, CSU, and the FDP. This is rather unlikely. So I think we have to be prepared for a coalition between the CDU, CSU, and the Green Party. And I think the good news is that almost nobody is really afraid of that anymore. I mean, of course, many people who are more on the conservative side criticize some parts of the political program of the Greens, and the Greens actually are now going to developed their election program. They have a new, what they call Grundsatz program, so fundamental program, but now they are going to come up with a new election program, and they will have to address a lot of important issues. And given the fact that the pandemic hit the German economy very hard, Germany is facing a wave of insolvencies. So the question how to help the German economy recover from the crisis will play an enormous role. Up till now, there was, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on your point of view, but there was no hard choice between the economic necessities and the ecological needs. And I think this will not change. So the majority accepts that the economic transformation must be done in accordance with the climate goals, with the environmental goals. So with the green agenda, with the EU Green Deal. But this can change if more people come to the conclusion that, well, it's not the right time for ambitious climate goals, because now it's time to save the economic substance. I think it would be wrong, because it would lead to preservation of old structures. And what Germany needs, and what Europe needs, also Poland needs, is well, using the crisis for transforming the structures in order to get out more with a higher competitiveness of the crisis. But this will be, of course, a highly debated issue in the election campaign. I'm absolutely convinced.
David, I would like to ask you whether you agree with Mr. Ambassador's diagnosis. Also, I would like to ask a question from the audience. Thank you very much for asking all these questions via our chat. What do you think caused such a sharp decline of SPD?
Regarding the sharp decline of SPD, this is a tendency which you can observe in many European countries. The Social Democrats in other European countries are suffering as well. And I think that the conflict line in societies nowadays is not between workers and enterprises, between workers and companies, but between ecological and economic issues. And you have to admit that Germany reached a quite high social security level, so that you can say, of course, we have also problems especially in some people have problems with social security issues, but in general, the social security or the protection is very high, and the demand for more social rights, for a better social security state isn't that high. Other issues play a more important role, and the party system in Germany, in a way, reflects the new demands of the voters. And this is one reason for the decline of the Social Democrats. There are other reasons. They made a lot of internal changes. They really they really fostered the economic boom after 2005 with their Agenda 2010, but afterwards neglected that the Agenda 2010, the reform agenda for Germany, was a good idea. So they had conflicts within their own party. So a lot of factors. But I think the conflict line is basically nowadays elsewhere, and not on the field between workers and companies. The other issue is which Ambassador Reiter mentioned, is the transformation agenda which Germany has on mind. it's very ambitious. It will not come costless. And Germany now has the most expensive energy prices in Europe, and a further transformation of the energy sector, setting up more on renewables, on offshore technology, establishing new technologies in that regard will not come without costs. And we have really to find a balance between recovery programs for the economy and for transforming the economy into a new era. This is really a challenge, and we maybe the Conservative Party plays the role in this game of moderating this process in a way. Do this pragmatic from a pragmatic point of view. Of course, Germany cannot solve the CO2 emission problems for the world. I mean, all we know that China, India, the US are the most polluting countries, and Germany shares only 2% of global CO2 emissions. But of course, we can show that it's possible in a pragmatic style, in a pragmatic way. And I think this is the most important project, not only for Germany, but also for Europe, because we can show in a way that it's possible to not preserve the industry, but to transform the industry in a way to create new jobs and new industries, and show that this is possible. Because when we fail with this, others will not follow.
Talking about Europe, I would like to ask Ambassador Reiter, how Germany do you think sees the future of European project, especially under new leadership? Will there be business as usual or not? And I would like to come with also a question from our audience. Mr. Mateusz Kajk is asking whether Poland will be an important partner for Germany in the European Union now, or maybe Germany will look for some other partnerships like the old EU countries like France.
Well, I'm not concerned at all about Germany's commitment to Europe for the simple reason that the vast majority of the Germans has realized, especially now also during the crisis, how much Germany relies on Europe, economically and politically. Economically, because well, roughly 60% of the German exports go to EU countries. But this was why this made the German leadership change their position on on mutual debt. And this was a taboo break, so to speak, in Germany. Well, it was exactly the realization that Germany cannot afford the failure, for example, of the Italian economy. The failure of the Italian economy or of the Spanish economy, but also of the Polish economy, would undermine Germany's economic position. Germany depends on other markets. It needs other markets, and the EU still is the largest market for German products, and this is not going to change. This is the economic reasons. Here, I also would add that Germany has realized that strengthening the position in the global competition against the major economic powers, the US and China, is not possible as a single nation state, even if you are the biggest economy. It takes a larger block, it takes a larger environment, and this only can be the European Union. So all these ambitious programs, Green Deal, green transformation, digitalization, and so on, all they need a larger framework. The framework is the European Union. So this is why I think the Germans now realize better than for a long time, then maybe then well, more than in the last at any time in the last 30 years, how much they need the European Union. Politically, they need the European Union as well. Given the complex relationship with the US, given the pressures from China, Germany alone would be in a lost position vis-a-vis, for example, China. Germany also needs Europe for managing the relationship with the US. And this is why we are watching now something that makes me concerned, that's the decline in German confidence in the transatlantic relationship and in the US as the leading power of the West. At the same time, we see a very strong support for France and for a strong relationship with France. Well, frankly speaking, but this is not the relationship with France cannot be and will never be an equivalent of the relationship with the US for a lot of reasons. France is, after all, too weak to play the same role that the US has played in Germany for decades. So, but it's absolutely clear that the country needs the European Union. The problem is that you will not find the same level of support for the European Union in many other European countries, and especially in France. The support for the EU in France is much lower. The support for the EU in Poland is fortunately higher than in France. I think it's comparable with Germany. And here, well, the future of the Polish-German relationship. First, this is not about personal sympathies, even though I have to add, Armin Laschet knows Poland quite well. He knows, I think he understands Poland, and he's sympathetic with Poland. He's Catholic, which does not mean too much, but it means that he understands, for example, the phenomenon of the Polish Catholic Church. And this helps also understand Poland. But this is not the most important topic. The most important topic is Germany is interested in a good relationship with Poland, and with Poland as a strong factor or a strong partner in the European Union, as part of a European equilibrium, as part of a European balance. Germany has lost an important ally or partner in the EU, that was the UK. So now we have a kind of, well, distorted balance in the EU. Germany depends very much on France, and, well, Poland could play an important role. But of course, it takes also two to this tango. So it takes also Poland to this tango. Poland also must want to invest in this relationship. I think it would be a good investment.
David, you've been nodding for most of the ambassador's speech. So do you agree with this diagnosis? Will we be also like a strong allies of Germany in the future?
And my strong hope is that the current government in Poland understands that the European Union is not only the third party where you can blame on persons or developments, but really a resource of possibilities, and that the European Union could really help also Poland to develop further. And I would agree on the fact that, I mean, the German-Polish relationship is so important. In the last couple of days, the German newspapers were full of economic analysis showing that Poland really developed well, that this is an important partner. But to be honest, since 2015, politically, nothing is going on between Poland and Germany. I mean, I can't see really a positive development of fields of interest where we really find together. And this is a thing where we are trying, of course, as Adenauer Foundation, trying to identify fields, trying to bring people together, trying to foster the dialogue. But it's so difficult. I mean, we have a bunch of issues where we have common interests regarding Russia, Belarus, regarding energy policy and all this. And to find a common ground, to find a dialogue between the current government and German stakeholders is really hard at the moment, and we have to try to establish a dialogue, but it's not easy, and to understand that Europe
one of the issues which divides us is, of course, Nord Stream 2. So I want to ask both of you, especially Janusz and then David, maybe you can comment. What do you expect now? You know, Biden's era is continuation of criticism towards this project, and the new leadership in Germany, will it be a new decision concerning this?
Well, no, I don't think that there will be a revision of the German position on Nord Stream. I regret that because I believe that Nord Stream is a heavy mistake. It is a product of a Russian strategy and of a German strategy denial. So, and now Germany is paying the price for absurdly denying the strategic relevance of this project and saying instead of that this is a pure commercial project. Of course, everybody knows this is not a pure commercial project. It is a highly political project. Now, okay, but that's the reality. For many reasons, I can hardly imagine Germany just, say, stopping this pipeline. I mean, I could imagine, but even that is rather unlikely, a kind of, moratorium on the pipeline. So the completion of the pipeline and then a moratorium. And in this time, parties could look for a solution. But I think what we are watching now is the US administration is trying to come to a solution. To do that, they will try, both parties will try to put this question in a broader context. This is an old recipe, this is an old method. If you cannot solve a problem, you try to put this problem in a wider context, and so then you do not have just yes or no, because you have you add a number of other problems that you then try to solve in a package. And this makes sometimes things easier. And this is why Nord Stream 2 is now being discussed in the context of climate change cooperation, of energy cooperation. Whether this will help, I don't know, but I see the effort on both sides. I have to also to say quite honestly, it is somehow disappointing that all this criticism that came from Poland, from the Baltic countries, and from other countries, was ignored in Germany. And the serious debate started only with the US sanctions. But this is disappointing. Having said that, I mean, I would not say that if Nord Stream 2 is completed, this is the end of the Polish-German relationship and of the Polish-German cooperation. It is not. It is a bitter experience. It is a problem, but this is not the entire content of the Polish-German relationship. We have more interests in many other areas, but I still hope that there will be a solution of the Nord Stream 2 problem that also will be satisfactory for Poland.
David, so
And
how
David, how would you comment on that?
would you comment on that?
The mistake of Nord Stream 2 was made in the era of Gerhard Schröder when the Social Democrats signed this treaty. I think this is from a geopolitical point of view. It was problematic, but the pipeline will be finished. This is my expectation. They will be finished. But afterwards, the Germans won't take the gas. But anyway, this is the mistake of Nord Stream was made in the end of 90s, to open up this box is really difficult, because when I'm talking with our political partners and friends here, one question isn't solved from my point of view, or addressed quite well: the problem of base load energy in Europe, or in Germany especially. I mean, we switched off nuclear power, we switched off coal, and we need base load energy, and only oil and gas could deliver base load energy. You can't build upon the industrial country upon just upon renewables, and therefore, although we don't like the authoritarian regimes in Saudi Arabia or Russia, it's a necessity, just a mere necessity, to have baseload energy, and to solve this with, for example, LNG from the US, where fracking and shale gases are producing a lot of CO2 emissions, isn't really a problem. And this isn't convincing to me. When you are really looking closely on energy policy, then you have to understand that this is really a complex issue, and there's no easy answer on this.
Well, let me ask then about much global aspects, if I may. Janusz, you want to add something to what David had said?
I mean, just maybe very briefly, economically, Nord Stream 2 is not necessary, and there is a lot of reports, of pieces of analysis that that clearly show that without Nord Stream 2, there would be enough natural gas in Germany and in Europe, because we have the other pipelines, and we have a lot of LNG in Europe today. So this may have been the case 10 or 15 years ago. Today, it is not necessary. A lot has been invested, especially in LNG infrastructure in Europe. The problem is political. I mean, for me, there is no doubt about that. Germany doesn't want to break up this contract because Germany is afraid of alienating Russia even more, and the German-Russian relationship is in a crisis. So that's the political rationale behind Nord Stream 2. But well, okay, that's the reality that we have to cope with. I mean, as much as I regret that, I believe we cannot focus on this one issue only.
Right. It's following this this global aspect. I want to ask David if you can tell us a little bit more about how Germany sees its role and the Europeans' role globally, except for US and China, for example, towards Asia, towards Indo-Pacific concept, towards Russia also as an important player. What is the thinking in Germany as far as this regard?
I think it's totally obvious and clear that the 21st century will be coined in Asia, and this will be definitely in Asian century, when you look at the demographic development, when you look at the economic dynamism in the region, you have to at least try to invest in better relations to other countries than only China. I think not decoupling, but intensifying the relations with Asia is really, really important for Europe, not only for Germany, because we have partners in this region like Japan, like Korea, like Australia or New Zealand, and we really have to try to strengthen our relationship with these countries. It was a good contrapoint from the European Commission that she didn't follow the Trump trade war, but set clear signals toward free trade, towards new ambitious negotiation agreements with Japan, for example, with Vietnam, with Singapore, with Australia. And this is the right priority, to focus on Asia, to, in a way, make a pivot to Asia, as Obama is once called it. I think this is necessary to maintain our wealth, because the markets of tomorrow are there.
I would like to now ask you very briefly, because our time is running, but we have a very interesting question from our audience. Mr. Rafał Nowak asks about the possible role of Germany as a peacekeeper and a stronger NATO member. We don't know whether America is going to go back to the role of like the word peacekeeper, but still, what is the Germany's role in that, do you think? It's a question both to David and Mr. Ambassador. Very briefly, please. Maybe Mr. Ambassador could start.
Well, Germany can no longer be solely a trading power. The country, also in its own interest, if it wants to remain a trading power, it has to do more for the global security, because open trade depends on global security, and the US is no longer willing and able to provide global security to the entire world. The US needs other countries that make their contribution, and this must reflect the also the economic power of these countries. And as one of the leading economic powers of the world, Germany must also invest in the public goods, so in global security. This will take a mental change, because the country is now extremely risk adverse. This must change, and one of the tasks of the new leadership will also be, well, explaining to the people that the old good times when Germany could just do business and leave the dirty political business to other countries, that this is over.
David, you've been nodding again all the time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I mean, it's very difficult to convince the voters from this, especially with a green coalition partner. This will be difficult. And when you look at the numbers, I can't imagine really to raise the numbers of the military budget in Germany from 40 billion to 80 billion, which would be more or less the number which is necessary to fulfill the 2% criteria. But 80 billion euros in military spending, I don't think that the German voters will accept this. I mean, we are a very Pacific nation at the moment, a pacifist nation at the moment, and it's difficult to convince the voters from this. But Ambassador Reiter is totally true. It's necessary from a political point of view.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this talk. Thank you, Agnieszka, also for co-hosting this session. I think we will discuss Germany very, very often, because it's our neighbor and it's the country we think we know, but it may be, quite superficial knowledge. So thank you very much, both the guests, David Gregos, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and Ambassador Janusz Reiter, Center for International Relations, Małgorzata Bodnikowska and Agnieszka Ostrowska from the Center for International Relations. Thank you very much for this talk. And as usual, please join us next Tuesday, 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.